Good morning and welcome everyone to what I believe will be our last meeting of the House Agriculture Committee, unless we do have a special called meeting. With that being said, I will ask the Secretary to call the roll, please.
Representative All.
Here.
Representative Bivens. Representative Donworth.
Here.
Representative Freeland. Representative Hale.
Present.
Representative Hart. Representative Holloway. Representative Kim King. Representative Cook. Representative Massaroni. Representative McPherson.
Here.
Representative Moore.
Here.
Representative Payne.
Here.
Representative Pollock.
Here.
Representative Rayburn.
Here.
Representative Stalker.
Present.
Representative Tate.
Here.
Representative Thomas.
Present.
Representative Tipton.
Here.
Representative Watkins.
Present.
Representative Pfister.
Here.
And Chairman Dossett.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Do any of our members have any guests they'd like to introduce? Yes, Representative All.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Britton Stafford. Britton's here with me today from Owen County High School. This is actually his second time shadowing me in the legislature, so he hasn't gotten sick of me yet. He wants to be a public servant when he grows up, so y'all might see him here later. Please make him feel welcome.
With that, we are limited on time here today. We've only got 30 minutes that we're going to be able to meet. So with that being said, we will limit those that with the presentation in support of the Senate Bill 69. We'll allow 10 minutes there, and for those that are opposed, we will allow 10 minutes and then move to questions and then on to a vote. So with that being said, Senator Webb, ask for you to introduce yourself and your guests, and you may begin your presentation.
Thank you. Senator Robin Webb, District 18, and I'd introduce yourself for the record.
I'm James Beckman, an equine practitioner and KVMA president-elect.
Matt Cook, State Representative, 72nd District, and here with solidarity with Senator Webb on this bill, and also here as a horse owner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also with me, I got to give some to show you all that it's been about a 2-year consensus piece of legislation. I have these individuals in the audience to answer any questions. Deborah Hamelback, Executive Director of the Kentucky Board of Veterinary Examiners, Dr. Weber, who's their Government Relations Chair, Michelle Shane, who's the KBVE Executive Director, and Dr. Park, who is one of my veterinarians, is supposed to be here as well. I haven't seen him. And Dr. Steve Wills, the former chair of the Kentucky Veterinary Medical Examiners, could not. He tried to Zoom in support of this, but he was unable to do so. What this bill does is creates a path for those individuals that are doing equine dental on the level of what I've always felt was animal husbandry, and as a horse owner, what's called floating teeth. And that most of those individuals, I've got two here, Justin Talip and Jim Kustra. Jim's sister's a veterinarian, and they're very well trained and in this practice, if you will. And this has been going on since there have been horses. People have been doing this. I know the people that do mine are like fifth generation individuals that do. And what this allows is a path of certification for those individuals, a little more accountability, enable them to get insurance, and hopefully foster better relationships with the veterinarians that they work with. There are limitations here on the scope of practice that's been consensus that's in the bill, so they won't be performing what you call surgery or anything like that.
Motion on the bill.
Okay, we do have a motion. Representative McPherson has the motion. Representative Tate is the second. Senator, would you like to continue?
Yes, if I may briefly. There are, it has a grandfather clause. That too was a consensus piece to allow these individuals who have been doing this for years and years and years and without any remarkable incidents of adverse impact that I know of, to be grandfathered in with additional training, and we do that a lot in different things. But again, this came. Chairman here and I worked on the Veterinary Modernization Act a couple of years ago. This was the segment that needed consensus, and he said, take this and let's do it. And I'm a horse owner. Most of y'all know me. I've got horses in Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and this is a practice that I can do myself as an owner, that I can have an agent of mine do. So what we're doing is creating a path for these individuals that do it. And, my horse has a chiropractor. I can't afford one, but my horse has a chiropractor. So the chiropractors are in here too, to allow them accountability and credibility and a path to certification and recognition and acknowledgement. And I will say we had a series of meetings for the last 2 years. Those meetings have been open. We've sent surveys. We have the data here to bring stakeholders together, surveyed veterinarians. We got a veterinary large animal shortage. I'm in a rural part of the state. I'm certified 4-H. I work with the saddle clubs and 4-H kids and FFA. And, we have a hard time getting an equine vet to visit. And then a lot of the equine vets, large animal vets that I've talked to, they're like, number one, we don't want to do this. We can't charge people. They can't afford us to do this, and we don't have the time. And again, they have people that they work with. So that's what our studies showed. And there was a lot of opportunity for anybody against this bill to come forward in the last 2 years, because we did not operate in secret. And we didn't always agree on everything, but this is a consensus piece of legislation. And I think it's a good piece of legislation and a necessary piece of legislation, because the Board of Examiners are in the spot of perhaps writing letters to people who do this without a license or without this certification. So it would put a chilling effect on horse health, in my opinion, access and affordability, especially in rural areas. Now, there is a veterinary board certified specialist. A couple of them are here. I think there's 3 that I know of in the state. I'm not sure. 3. And they are all in what I call the golden triangle of horsedom. I got a farm in Versailles and Representative Pfister's district, and I don't have a lot of trouble getting a veterinarian there. But I do in Carter County and even other states. So this is kind of a rural access and affordability bill to me, and to preserve animal husbandry practice that's been gone on for hundreds of years, and allow those folks to have credibility. So.
We do have a question, Representative Watkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A very brief question for the sponsor. I think I saw something in the bill relating to continuing education for the licensees or future licensees. Can you speak a little bit to that? I don't know a lot about horses, so this is just from my knowledge.
Well, I might defer to Justin. Do you want to come up here and identify yourself? Identify yourself for the record.
My name is Justin Talp. I'm from Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. So with this bill, there's an association, the International Association of Equine Dentistry, and our membership and our certification requires 24 hours of CE every 2 years. The regulations for this might be a little bit different, where it's 12 hours every year. But through that association, there are many opportunities between workshops that we sponsor, conferences, there's different conferences, and so those will be some CE opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Moore, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question it's on page 14, starting on line 20. It's paragraph C there. It has to do with licensure for this AAHP licensing approval, about a person being of good moral character. I had the good opportunity to go and visit with Spy Coast Farm. That's in Lexington, to meet their owner. And they do rehabilitation for people who were previously incarcerated, and they use it as an opportunity for people to gain tangible skills here in the horse capital of the world, and to give them an alternate path. So hopefully there is no recidivism. They do not end up back in incarceration. I worry that people like that will be left out if essentially their past theoretical misdeeds would be used against them to be able to prevent them from getting that license?
I think the board will do as they do now, or any professional association. I'm an attorney, and certainly attorneys get in trouble from time to time, and some of them get their license back. And good moral character is also part of that. And I think it's a case by case basis. If we could train those individuals, or they want to pursue that education upon release, which that's why we support those programs for the industry as well as the rehabilitation of the individual. I think that would be a case-by-case basis, and you could overcome a past bad act by your rehabilitative success.
And I would like to add to that, we actually passed a bill through the House, it's going over to the Senate right now, that actually deals with the licensure boards, requiring people to look at that, a second chance, if you will, to make sure that you look at this, you look at their past, you look at their background, you look at where they are now in life, and make that determination. And if it's going to be a no, that you give them a submission in writing on why that is a no. So that's going to be for all boards, and it directly relates to what your question is.
Thank you, Senator Webb, and also Representative Cook for that.
Thank you. We do have some individuals that would like to speak in opposition, and Senator and Representative, if you don't mind, we'll let those come forward. We're limited. We'll have about 10 minutes. I know we have William Rainbow, Dr. Brad Tanner, and is there any others that would like to speak in opposition to this? If you both will introduce yourselves, I'll let you present. Like I said, we have about 10 minutes.
Let's try that again. Chairman Dossett, thank you. Representatives, thank you for hearing this bill and letting us address you. I appreciate your time. First, I'd like to restate many of the things that were said by Senator Webb. There is a shortage of veterinarians.
Oh, we need to have you introduce yourself, please. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Dr. Brad Tanner. I'm a equine veterinarian and a board certified specialist in equine
Is your
dentistry.
microphone on?
I'll try again. Can you hear me, sir?
There.
Thank you. Dr. Brad Tanner, I'm a equine veterinarian, boarded specialist in the area of oral surgery and equine dentistry. Want to reiterate things that Dr. Webb said. I agree there is a shortage of veterinarians. Obviously, we've spoken about this in rural areas. And yes, the act of floating horse teeth is absolutely something that's necessary. It's needed, and there is a need for that. And so I'm not here to dispute that in any way. I would like to clarify some thing that I thought was misspoken previously, and that is the overall consensus that we have within the veterinary community on this bill. There's a KVMA survey that was sent out as this bill was being developed that showed only 14 out of 214 respondents would have been supportive of this, supportive that this bill allows for indirect veterinary supervision of dental health care. And so for me, it comes down to is this dental health care or is this floating teeth? Because those are two different things. Floating teeth, as Senator Webb said, is animal husbandry. It's something that's needed. It's something that's done annually for routine horse care. And I will never refute that. That's so true and so valuable and so needed. But if we're talking about floating teeth, then we're talking about floating teeth. There's so many concessions were made as this bill was created that the scope of practice carves out far more than floating teeth. It carves out surgery. It carves out removal of teeth. Removal of teeth, that's a procedure that's above the gingival margin. That is actual surgery. We do surgery with pain management. We do surgery with sedation on 1,000-pound animals, large animals, right? Working on them without safe protocols, sedation, nerve blocks, pain management is harmful for the person doing the work, harmful for the animal, and harmful for the owner. And so my concern for the bill is that it carves out a scope of practice that extends beyond the husbandry that was described of floating teeth. It actually goes well beyond that. The second concern I have with the bill that I'll share with you is the title Equine Dental Provider. I feel like that's very misguided towards the general public. I hear dental provider, I hear my dentist who has a doctorate in dentistry, someone who's well trained in the areas of endodontics, orthodontics, periodontics, this person who knows how to do oral surgery and diagnostic imaging. That's a holistic approach to dental provider that you and I would be familiar with as part of our healthcare programs. So I think if we're carving out an area for animal husbandry and rasping and floating of teeth, which is absolutely necessary, I agree with that, then that title is misleading, equine dental provider. What we're actually doing is we're an equine teeth floater. We're helping horses. It's necessary, but it's certainly misguiding if someone shows up and says, I'm here as your dental provider. That has a different expectation for an owner who won't know the difference between someone who's potentially received years and years of training, residency training, surgical skills versus someone whose training was a 6-week equivalent of a 6-week course. And that's not to diminish anyone's talents or interest or hard work in any way, but those are the facts on the skill levels of an education level of those two professionals. And so I feel like that nomenclature is certainly misleading to the public. With that, I'll give time to Dr. Rainbow.
I'm Dr. William Rainbow with Kentucky Equine Veterinary Dental Specialists. I echo everything that Dr. Tanner said previously. I am concerned about the rural veterinarian as well, and we get horses referred up from rural counties as well. I live in Versailles, but I work all the way from Elizabethtown, Louisville, down to Winchester and beyond, just depending on how we're doing the work. But we get a lot of horses from the rural areas as well. And the concern from a lot of the owners is, well, I thought I had something taken care of because they were an equine dental provider. I thought they had this level of training, that I've been doing the right thing for the last 5-10 years or however long this problem has been going on, or they just didn't know that it was going on. So I do think that the renaming is important, and I think scaling back some of the scope of practice so that we remove the surgical procedures is critical to not only helping the horse, but more importantly, helping our consumers, because they need to understand the scope of training that a non-veterinarian has providing dental services versus the scope of practice that a veterinarian can provide. Because when we go on these calls and we look at horses, we're not just looking at the teeth, we're looking at the body condition. We're discussing all the things that could be the reason this horse has weight loss. And when I talk to rural veterinarians, and because I have made an effort to talk to people outside of the area that we practice to make sure that, what are your concerns? Are you really in support of this or not? Because our KVMA survey overwhelmingly showed not. So I wanted to make sure, and I reached out to veterinarians outside of our area to go, what do you guys think of this? And what they find is the rural veterinarians go, well, we're trying to make money, but these guys are coming in a lot cheaper than us. But what happens is the owners end up paying twice. They've paid for somebody to float the teeth, and they assume that they're getting this sort of comprehensive exam, but when a problem shows up, it's typically more severe than they think. The oral exam is a critical and important part to floating teeth as well. But I think, if we're going to make a concession, floating teeth is the one to allow, and we have to scale this back to allow the floating of teeth. But we need to make sure that the oral exam is something that people understand. They're not paying for that when they're paying for a non-veterinarian to do the work on their horse. And I think that will help our rural veterinarians be able to make a little bit of money and stay in the community, because we need to give them opportunities, because they're going out to these farms or horse owners and looking at horses, and they're discovering that the owners don't want to pay twice when the veterinarian is concerned that the horse has an oral problem. But they're saying, well, the teeth were already floated. Was there something more here? We as veterinarians are trained for that. We can do that work and we can help it. That's something I think is pretty important. A lot of times in the past, this was compared to sort of being a turf war, and I really don't see it that way. It's not optometrists being allowed to do an ophthalmist job or an ophthalmologist job. We want to make sure that an optometrist doesn't have sharp instruments to work in your eyeballs, but an ophthalmologist does. So we just want to make sure that the scope and scale of practice is appropriate for the level of training, so that the horse owners know what they're paying for and can get what they're paying for, and understand that there's another step further should they need that. So that is probably the most important thing for me in my notes here. And I'd be more than willing to take any questions that you guys have, or if Dr. Tanner needs more time.
Thank you, Dr. Rainbow. Dr. Tanner, we appreciate you making your presentation. I do have a question right here. Representative Bivens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not necessarily a question as much as just a statement in general on the bill. And I want to thank Dr. Tanner. Let it be known he's a good friend of mine. We went through college together. I've got the utmost respect for Brad and what he has done in his life, and is a very successful veterinarian. We've talked a lot today, and we hear this all the time. It's something that's been brought up in Kentucky a lot within the ag community is the lack of large animal vets across the state of Kentucky. That's an ongoing problem. Me and Dr. Tanner have even discussed that. I wish there was a silver bullet solution to that problem, but there's really not. But I think part of our job as legislators and members of this committee, when we sit on it, we have to think about the whole state. And I've always had a problem in the fact that we talk about Kentucky's the horse capital of the world, but where I grew up in a rural, remote part of Kentucky, a horse to me was an old brood mare that was running around in a pasture. We can also refer to a horse as being a multi-million-dollar thoroughbred. Or, a good friend of mine, he had to put down a saddlebred last week, Undulata Nutcracker, that was well known in the saddlebred industry and has influenced that industry greatly. Has brought home a lot of money. But then I think about the kid that's a 4-H kid out in a rural, remote part of Kentucky that has a project horse. Maybe it's a quarter horse. But you go back to that old brood mare that is probably not bringing any income whatsoever into that family. If anything, it's costing that family money because they're feeding it. It's more of a pet than anything. Maybe it's used to ride the grandkids around or something like that. That's one issue we have, and oftentimes we have to remember that the whole scope of things. I wish there was a rural large animal vet in every community. That would solve a whole lot of our problems. But we have to be realistic and realize they're not. The way it stands right now, my friend from Jefferson yesterday talked about my knowledge of agriculture. I'll tell you, I don't know a thing about horses. They're hay burners in my book. No offense to the horse people in the room, but that's what I've often referred to them as. But I do know that there's a difference in horses. And what is sad is I could go out here and buy a horse now myself, and I could pull a horse tooth as an owner and not get in trouble for this. It's perfectly acceptable because I'm the owner of the horse. When there's probably a guy down the road that I've got a tenant that lives in one of my houses, he's very knowledgeable of horses. But legally, he couldn't come over, if he was allowed to float teeth. And some of the things I do like in this bill that I want to point out, it's not just that we're going to give free rein. They're going to have to get a certification, and with that certification comes 2 letters of recommendation from a veterinarian. So I like seeing that. But, I've heard words mentioned here today, and I think the things we have to remember back to, for one is animal health. And when you think about animal health, and I'm not thinking about, because if you're an owner of a multi-million-dollar thoroughbred and you want to hire anybody other than a specialist to work on that horse's teeth, I'm going to question that owner. They're not in their right mind, or they've got more money than sense, in my opinion, to work on that. But I'm thinking about that rural, remote area, so you got to consider animal health. You also have to consider accessibility and affordability, because those families, they're not, no offense to Brad, and as proud as I am of him, if I got no brood mare, I'm going to call him and ask him for a favor, but I know what he's going to do. He works for, he's a specialist. He's going to call me and send me one hell of a bill after it's said and done, and it's probably, I'm going to put a bullet in the horse, instead of wanting to pay that bill and that kind of thing. So I think we have to remember all that. The last thing, the point I'd like to bring home with this, and I've known Senator Webb a long time, and I've kept telling myself all day, I said, you've got to refer to her as Senator Webb and not Robin today, but that's part of being a friend. And agriculture is that small family we've talked about. If somebody asked me to give them one phrase to sum up Senator Webb, I think for those of you that have worked with her and know her, you would say she loves horses. I really don't think she would bring forth bad horse language, something that would hurt the horse industry today. And when I think about those rural, remote areas of Kentucky, I'm going to have to vote in favor of this bill today. And, I wanted to share those comments with the committee and my fellow committee members. That way they just know. And like I said, I think we have to consider that because we have to think about all Kentuckians and all horses from that brood mare up to the multi-million-dollar thoroughbred. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have time for one more question. Representative Stalker.
Thank you, Chair. For the gentleman at the table, doctors, you guys expressed concern over the phrase, what was it? Dental provider. and I'm looking here on page 18 of 38 here, and it explicitly says an equine dental provider shall not use the titles equine dentist, veterinarian dentist, or veterinary dentist, unless the equine dental provider is also licensed to practice veterinary medicine. Okay. My question for you is what phrase should we be using that might give better clarity? And then the second follow-up is that enough? Does the average person who's maybe not, owning a horse that's worth a substantial amount of money, do they know the difference? And do you have any suggestions as far as educational component that we could help provide people so that they're not hiring somebody who really they can't afford when they could hire somebody else to deal with a floating tooth? But also to make sure that you're not addressing an issue where they have to come back because there is a larger problem and maybe we don't want people to be paying twice. So I'm just looking for your advice in your area of expertise.
Thank you for the question. In my mind, if you were looking for a replacement for the term equine dental provider, you would use what's actually being provided, which is the floating of teeth. So equine teeth floater. I mean, that's what's actually being done. It's not a all-inclusive dental exam, dental work being done, orthodontics, periodontics, diagnostic imaging. It's not to minimize it, but that's what's actually being done. So that would be my recommendation. That one change in verbiage would be more representative of what's truly being done for the public. And as far as the concerns on cost, this isn't the forum for that, but it's actually the process of floating teeth is actually very similar cost between specialist and Mr. Talop that was up here speaking previously. The cost isn't that much. Now for Representative Bivens, he might get the family discount. It might be a little more.
We do have to move on to a vote. Let the secretary call the roll, please.
Representative All,
Yes.
Representative Bivens, Representative Donworth,
May I briefly explain my vote, please?
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you. I, too, have been a member of the equine community for a long time. I'm not currently active right now, but I've talked with a lot of people throughout all of this. And I think what I have come to understand is that there is a time and a place when we do need the dental veterinary skills. But I believe there's also a space where we don't, where we need to allow these lay floaters to be able to do that. From what I have heard, there is quite a big cost difference, about 3 times from different people. And it's difficult to get equine dentistry veterinarians to come do it sometimes. So I am a yes on this today. I have deep respect for the equine veterinary community, but I am a yes on this. Thank you.
Representative Pfister,
Yes.
Representative Freeland, Representative Hale,
Yes.
Representative Hart, Representative Holloway,
Yes, and I need to record my attendance, please.
Representative Kim King, Representative Cook, Representative Massaroni,
Yes, and I need to record my attendance also. Thank you.
Representative McPherson,
Yes, explain my vote, please. So,
Go right ahead.
Yes. So my roommate, Jimmy Cooster, about 35, 40 years ago, said if he knew he would have been before me today, he would have been nicer to me. So I wish he'd have been nicer to me, but I'll still vote yes.
Representative Moore,
Permission to explain my vote?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I believe this is a good bill, even if it's an imperfect bill. I'm going to be a yes today. I want to thank Dr. Tanner and Dr. Rainbow for providing their testimony and what you sent out to us as well. I went through that survey today. And we have an amazing LRC staff. I hope that y'all can work with hopefully Senator Webb and Representative Cook to see if we could maybe have a friendly amendment that addresses some of the concerns as far as the allowed services and procedures listed on page 20 of this bill. But I look forward to hopefully seeing it in a friendly way on the House floor. I'm a yes.
Representative Payne,
Yes.
Representative Pollock, Representative Rayburn,
Yes.
Representative Stalker,
Briefly explain my vote.
Yes, go ahead.
I will be a yes today. I also share the sentiment of Rep Moore. I want to thank both of the doctors for their testimony today, and I do want to encourage there to be some continued conversations so that we could potentially iterate our way to perfection on this bill. So I don't want to prevent it from moving forward, but I do hope that there's some conversations, and if we can maybe make just some small language changes that still upholds the intent of the bill, but meets everybody's comfort level, that would be great.
Representative Tate,
Yes.
Representative Thomas,
Aye.
Representative Tipton,
Yes.
Representative Watkins,
Brief explanation,
Go
Mr.
right
Chair.
ahead.
I don't know enough about horses either way to say yea or nay. I'll pass.
Chairman Dossett.
Yes. Senate Bill 69 passes with favorable expression and believe will do so on the House floor. Thank you, Senator, and thank you all for coming and make your presentations today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. And if I could just say to Representative Stalker and Moore, we have individuals here that would be glad to explain that further. The time restraint kept us from doing that, but I think you'd like to hear from them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And once again, I'd like to thank the committee members for being with us here with our Ag Committee, and look forward to seeing you in the interim. And also want to say thank you to our wonderful staff who do a fantastic job. Thank you. Can I have an emotion?